Very well. Hey, Arturo. Sorry, I interrupted you. We were talking about design and so on. After the years you've worked, for example, at a European brand like Volkswagen and now at a more Chinese brand like NIO for years, there's one thing that always catches my attention, and it's the time process between the presentation of the first design and the delivery, where Chinese manufacturers significantly shorten the times, and then between the first version they show us publicly and the final product, which are very, very, very similar in the case of the Chinese, and very different in the case of the Europeans, who show you prototypes that make you say, wow, what a wonderful car, but it's never going to be like that. Whereas the Chinese, on the contrary, present cars that make you say thank you. Wow, maybe not as exaggerated, but then they are much more faithful in the final production part. What do you think about that?
Well, what you're saying is very true. That happened a lot when, for example, when I was at Volkswagen, we always made impressive concepts, and then we saw that the same concept, for example, the ID vision, had nothing to do with the reality of the IDs. So that was a bit demotivating. I mean, it's normal that you want to present your ideas in a big way, right? But many times, due to especially economic and timing issues, it's not possible to achieve those kinds of things. I, for example, know that Volkswagen lately, or for some years now, has been trying to present concepts very close to reality. For example, like the ID2 or other IDs, which just change a little bit in production, but that they are very close because they have realized that in the long run, presenting a prototype and then presenting something else in production, well, in the end, the criticism changes. And maybe the person waiting for that type of vehicle, when they get something different, whether you like it or not, in the end, it discourages you, and maybe you choose another brand. On the other hand, the Chinese are not afraid. The Chinese, if they have money and budget and an idea, they go for it. For example, Neo does it, Craig Wall is not afraid either. And for example, what brand was I going to mention? Yes, one that I don't know if it will disappear, which is Hi-Fi. But their cars look like they came out of Star Wars. Here in Munich at the airport, they had a store. I don't know if it's still there because I haven't been there in a while. But one of the times I passed by, thank you, they had the three cars, or they had them displayed in what you might call a kind of plaza at the Munich airport. And they have them displayed there, the three of them. You start pressing buttons. I started to record videos. Don't you remember that I had started a YouTube channel a while ago? But because of work and family, I haven't been able to dedicate much time to it. But it's true that I recorded a video because I was really amazed, right? And the doors open like gull wing doors. Well, it's like getting into a spaceship. It's true that it's very risky, and perhaps those kinds of risks have led them to the situation they are in, because in the end, they are very expensive cars. I don't know if they were 150,000 euros. So it's difficult for a brand that is not known in Europe to succeed. It needs time to establish itself. And for someone to be willing to spend that kind of money, it already happened to Tesla, although over time they managed it with their Model S to be able to have a market in Europe. But for a Chinese brand with such high prices, entering Europe is difficult. In China, it might be a bit easier, but even so, it's challenging. But they are not afraid. That's how it is. They are not afraid to release any type of vehicle at any price. And if they later have the market, especially in China, because for them, their main market is China, if they can then expand little by little, perfect. For example, Great Wall's main market is China, and then they have a large market in Latin America.
For them, or rather they are not in a hurry. The important thing is their market. Hey, and in terms of design, in terms of timelines, how much time did Volkswagen a European brand typically take to design a car compared to a Chinese brand? Because, of course, I think the periods are much shorter and more accelerated in Chinese brands, right?
Yes, I think it would be about 6 years.
Normally,
for European brands, about 6 years. Again, from the car at 3 years. You start the facelift, or even at a year and a half, you already start working on the facelift. At 3-4 years, the facelift of the car usually comes out. For example, the Golf, which I was working on, the Golf 8, and 2 years, then it comes out. At 3.5 years, the facelift comes out. And at 6 years, theoretically, the new model should practically come out. And in a Chinese brand, for example, in NEO, which is the most recent experience I've had, when I started at the NEO, which was in January 2022, we started the ET9, right? Yes. And it was presented a few months ago, right? I don't know if it was in July or November when it was presented. So it's been practically 2 years.
I mean, less than half, a third of the time a European brand took.
So it's at a frenetic pace because, for example, at Volkswagen, the presentations were we had a lot of time, more than a month. We had maybe some reviews every 3 weeks, a month. I mean, in terms of design, years until it started. From when the project started in design until it was frozen and then moved to engineering, it was maybe practically 2 years. Not here. Here, everything has to be practically finalized in a year.